All right, I'm back. So we're gonna hopefully try to get this thing running today. So I left off with the bumper off and my fuel pump replaced. I put this back in the tank just to have it, just to kind of block stuff from getting in there. But I have a gasket to replace and I have these connectors to get off. Now, this is also the first time I'm coming back to these, so I'm hoping with a little brake cleaner I can get these to twist off, or I can get them to push off because I have a disconnect tool. So everything that my book has told me and research has told me is that they're quick disconnect. So I bought some replacement fittings and we should be chilling. So once with the replacement fittings, I'm gonna try to bleed out a little bit of fuel from what's currently in the lines, replace the fuel filter, and then we're gonna run this thing. After I check for spark too. So we had a pretty eventful day, but it should be pretty easy if these connectors come off. So there's my little recap, and yeah, we should have this thing running today. And if not, then it won't be in the video title. So this will be a pretty fun work day. Let's get to it. All right, so I went ahead and cut this just so I can get to there easily, but nothing worked. Brake cleaner did nothing. And I'm gonna try PV blaster, and if PV blaster doesn't work, then we're gonna try heat. But I'm gonna be as safe as possible because we're that close to the fuel. So, wish me luck. So these connectors are actually just completely crimped and they're not quick disconnect. So I'm gonna spare y'all of me learning to flare the edges and put a hose over them after I cut them off, but they're crimped. So I decided that I took the fuel pump cylinder back out and I did a wire brush to try to clean it off, all the rust and all the uneven stuff, but that didn't really work. Okay, after spending a really long time having to do all this, I'm gonna have to make a run to the store because these are permanent and everything I bought except for my gasket and hose is useless. So my quick disconnect tools are not needed. So what I'm gonna have to do is get this off, and I might buy a cutter just to get them off, and I'm gonna use a flare tool to make a hump just like the ones on the fuel pump assembly. And that should hold with the right hose clamps. So hopefully I can get these off and I can put a new one on, and I'm gonna run to the store now. So also I had to take a break because I didn't know what to do, so I've been just preparing this for the gasket. So yeah, we're gonna get around to it. And this plastic bin is to protect my thing, and cutting off this with a Dremel was not my favorite, so we're gonna do that. So, all right, I'm gonna run to the store. Okay, after a very long time later, I did a little more cleaning on the fuel assembly and all that so I could throw it in there. But I tried to get this band off, and now we're cutting it off. So, yeah, now I need to learn how to use a flare tool because we're gonna use EFI clamps, and I don't want to have them fly off, so I'm gonna make a bit of a flare. But the only problem is the tubing I bought to test the flaring on, this copper down here, is too big for my flare tool. So we're just gonna try to wing it after learning the best we can. So flare it, put the new hoses on, and hopefully we'll be in business. It's currently 7 p.m.-ish, 7:15. So we've got a good long while to learn how to flare. All right, we worked at trying to take off the casing of one of these for way too long. To try to save some practice hardline, but we didn't. So I think I'm just gonna go ahead and take off the other one. And then after that, I'm just gonna wing it. Okay, I know I'm getting barely any footage, but we are attempting to use this flare tool. I'm also just used it wrong, so you're gonna have to bear with me while I learn to use this thing. And yeah, I really need these things on. And it's currently Saturday night. I only have till Sunday afternoon. So I need to get this thing running. And right now, the flare tool is gonna be my way of getting hoses on here. The flare, and then putting the hose over the flare, and then putting clamps on. And that should hold up to whatever PSI this is, 43, something like that, 47. And yeah. All right, good news, boys and girls. We have done 2 flares. Now, I don't really want to show you the second one because it's really bad, but we're getting the hose on. And then after that, we're going to do some EFI clamps. And that's our temporary hold. I promise it's temporary. After that, I'm going to look into some AN and compression fittings for when I actually am driving this thing. This is our temporary solution to get this thing running. So I'm gonna try my best to get the second one on, and then we're gonna try to get the gasket onto the fuel pump assembly, which means a lot of wire brushing, a lot of everything. So I think it's about time to just keep on moving, and I know there's not much footage, but I will try my best to make this a informative and decently a decent bit of entertainment watching this video, because I want you to enjoy these videos. All right, we cleaned this up with a wire brush. It looks way better. So I have to go to bed now because it's late, because it always is. So we're gonna get the gasket on tomorrow. It's pretty simple. I have an adhesive for this wherever it went, and then I just put it here, and then we throw that in the tank. I'll try to clean this up a little bit too. There's not that much gas in here, so yeah. But I'm hoping this very janky flare system will work for now. After that, I'm going to try to switch to AN fittings or something like that, which is going to mean I'm basically going to cut the flare fittings off, or the basic flare off. So this is just to get it running, because I need this thing to run, and I'd like to do it in a very timely manner. All right, everybody, it's Sunday morning, so it's time to try to finish the thing up. So this is, as I say again, very temporary. So I'm going to try to find some AN fittings or compression fittings for the final result. But currently, hose clamps, flare that I made, having to learn how to flare, and then putting it all in and just seeing if I can hold fuel pressure, and then if I can, I'll maybe change the fuel filter first or something. I don't know, but it's down here. I figured I could maybe bleed the line a little bit to flush anything out that's bad. And then we're just going to try to run this thing. Actually, I want to check for spark before that, but that's not a very documentable process. So I'm going to check all my spark plugs at some point. All right, let's start with the gasket. So I don't have a better camera setup here, so I'm just going to show you all my stuff before I do it. I've got my replacement rubber gasket. I've got a spray and sealer for this. So what you do is you spray one side, then you spray one side of the gasket. You fuse them, you let it sit for a few minutes, and then you put it in there. So I think I can't film anything else on this, so I'm gonna show you when I have each step done. Okay, so I really couldn't film that whole process. The spray adhesive was really difficult, and I definitely did this wrong. But I went and just threw it in there. The bottom of the bottom of this assembly definitely has some, a lot more of the spray than it should, but I think it'll be okay. We're just gonna screw it in, keep the gasket in, and that should also help it keep it set, because it didn't want to stick for a second. So I'm thinking if I screw it in, tighten it down, it'll stick. So after that, I'm gonna check the spark plugs just by hand. And then later on today, I'm going to try to crank this thing and check if we have spark at all. Because if we don't, that's not good. And a very common issue is the OptiSpark distributor. Now, I don't know exactly where this thing is in here, but it's below your water pump, and your water pump can be very prone to leaking. And then when your water pump leaks, it leaks into your distributor. Now, granted, the only difference with mine is the 94. So it's a little better with the moisture prevention. It's got vents, and yeah. So this should be a little less prone to having an OptiSpark failure, but it still could happen. So we're gonna check for spark later. As you can tell, there's a few custom things on here, and that's partially why these fittings over there were not quick disconnect like they were from factory. Like these are quick disconnect, but these metal lines were not really used in this time period. So people have done some crazy stuff to this car. You also can tell that electrically. I don't know exactly what they did to the headlights, but it turns on. They turn on every time I put on the battery. So it's been a few modifications and probably at least 3 owners. I've owned this for, I'm the 3rd owner, so we'll just keep going. Okay, your reassembly is actually pretty simple. So you just put in your 10mm bolts, and then these have your clamps that use a plier. You put one over there, and then the rest of them, I think, have one of the top one, I think, has 2, and this one has 1. And then I'm doing whatever custom thing I want to do as a short term, because yeah. So after this video, I'm gonna look into some Army Navy fittings, and hopefully I can get them to fit over this, make a compression band, all that, and then attach them properly. But at least this side is still attached with hose clamps, so we're gonna do that, and then hopefully everything holds, and we're just gonna test our fuel pressure. So if we have fuel pressure, then I'll be happy. Whew. This is definitely pretty fun to work on, but it's also not very fun to work on. Whoever did own this before me, this was weird. Not the direct owner, but the person before me. You can tell they did a ton of electrical stuff that's just not needed. So I'm gonna try to restore this thing to its former glory. All right, now I'm gonna finish up this, and I'm gonna show you the rest of the assembly. All right, we're nearly done. So we just gotta get these on. I slip these on like this, and then I'm clamping them extra at the back, so your flare's probably about right here. And I'm hoping it's enough for these testing purposes. All right, I made a momentary switch to taking out these spark plugs. It actually could be worse here. A little carbon buildup, but overall, I think we're okay. So I'm gonna check for spark in a second. As you can tell, it's a little difficult to get here because my extension bar goes through your control arms and all that. So we're figuring it out. So this one seems fine. I might not check all of them. I think I'm gonna try to run it. All right, back to these hoses. Yeah, I can't get it much farther than this, so I'm gonna try to use the most amounts of lube I can, and just try to get these on. This is obviously I obviously made these in excess just for testing purposes, but these are not the final. I'm hoping these are the final hoses, but these are not the final fittings. Oh, and I don't think I ever talked about the mileage of this car. So here y'all can see on my digital dash, 164,584. So pretty good amount of miles, and I can't see my gas very much, but it doesn't seem like we have very much fuel. So we're gonna check that, and obviously you can tell there is fuel in the engine, but it's not very much. There's fuel in the tank, and there's fuel at these lines because somebody changed them out and I checked them and all that. So I'm gonna check for spark on the very center of the block. I think that should work. It's an aluminum block. I just need something, or actually I don't know that part of the block is aluminum. I just need something to conduct. So spark, and then yeah, we're gonna try to run this thing. Okay, spark was a very great success here. So I have spark. I'm about to put that plug back in there. So now I just need to try to get this line on, and this is still very temporary, just to test if I can get this thing to run. So also it currently says I have no fuel in the engine, but obviously my fuel pump's unplugged, so I think that's why. And I was able to get this thing to start without the parking brake. It's because it's grinding out. And okay, I really need to lock in. I have about an hour left, so I'm gonna put up all my tools quickly, and I just need this spark plug in. I don't know why it doesn't want to go in there, but hose trick doesn't want to work. Nothing wants to work. So I really need to get this in, because if I get this in, I'm starting it, and I need this thing to go boom. I need the engine. So we're just gonna lock in, and I really need this thing to actually fit. All right, y'all. This is probably gonna be a part 1 of a lot of things of getting this thing running. So this is gonna be like a 2-part series probably. Next time I go up, I hopefully can get it running. I'm just so annoyed that these threads just don't want to go in with this single spark plug. And hoping that, once it's all in, I'm getting fuel pressure, I'm getting everything. Hoping when I actually have everything ready, it works. And it should be ready right now, but I checked for spark and I can't get the one I took out back in. So, shouldn't have checked for spark. I should have just tried to run it. So, we'll go there. Okay, so future me here. Reason why you can't hear the fuel pump is probably because of a relay or a fuse. So I'm going to replace both of those, and hopefully I can get the fuel pump to work. And I'm putting some more fuel in the engine. I also just got to get that spark plug in. So next video, I should have all that done. Hopefully it runs. Thank you for watching this video, and subscribe.